most of my streams wind up sticky and weird.
Yeah,
so.
Well, yeah, that's how you have to promote it.
That's clipped out of context.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, we got the short for
clip.
the episode. Like we were talking about in the intro, you do a lot of like production of streams and a lot of like actual plays, live plays. I've been lucky to be in a couple of the one-shots myself. And since I have not had to do that, and Alex has not had to do that in the past...
One-shots?
No, producing a live stream of a one-shot.
Okay, just checking. No, I have not produced a live stream at all.
No.
Ever,
yeah. And you're probably happy about that.
We'll see. Depends on the information I'm about to get.
Yeah, I was gonna say, DC, I wanted to find out, kind of soup to nuts here. When you start with an idea like, we're gonna do an actual play, this is happening, you get that, like, it's happening. What's really the first steps that you have to kind of lay out in your head about what you're gonna do and how you're gonna organize an actual play?
Usually, this is probably a month out before when I settle on a date, and I only start getting people after I have an idea. I know this is weird, but a plot for the one shot basically mapped out. I don't know all the details, but I have a beginning and end kind of, and then I go, okay, I want to do this on this date, and I get the people, and usually that's a month before, so I have time to get any graphics done and overlays, anything like that, or contact anyone I need to bring in assets to the show.
Certainly.
So that's the first bit. All the pre-production step, if you will. And I figure out timings for things. If I'm doing something weird, like in my last one-shot I did for charity, I called it Electrum Chef. It was a parody of Iron Chef. I had a beard of cold cuts. I had a spinning prize wheel. So I had to figure out how all that worked in OBS well beforehand.
Yeah,
OBS is kind of a beast.
Like, I don't know if your experience is different than mine, DC, but like when I was trying to use OBS, I found it to not be particularly user-friendly in the way that it's presented. If you get into it enough, like, have you gotten to a place where it feels pretty natural to use?
Oh yeah, I always thought OBS was pretty fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a background of being a video tech and an analog video tech, right? So
sure,
I was using SVHS tapes, VHS tapes, all that stuff at the public access station, and had a big, huge switcher, and the way OBS worked just sort of spoke to that part of my brain.
Okay.
So I understood it, and right now, nothing really beats OBS as far as getting a show out there.
I was about to ask if you thought OBS was probably the best bang for the buck for video production and stream production.
Being free with the amount of plugins it has and the general help you can find, it's very good. There is one sort of up-and-comer that might do well called Meld, M-E-L-D. I think they're at meldstudio.com or something like that.
Oh.
But OBS has, since I started OBS, they've done some updates that have made it really good. And now with the hybrid MP4 option, which is like MKV and that type of thing, you can record chapter markers. And so when something happens, you just click a hotkey, it marks it on the video as well. And
okay, that's cool.
That's fabulous. And I think OBS is the only thing that really allows to do that. And sort of in the streaming space, the professional television productions is another thing.
Yeah.
But in the streaming space, that has become amazing. And I don't think anyone else is doing that. I believe you have to catch up to OBS in that regard.
Yeah.
In allowing people to just have some sort of video wrapper, like hybrid MP4 is what OBS calls theirs, that allows you to put chapter markers on the video itself, so when you drag it into editing, they pull up. Like if you have DaVinci Resolve, they instantly show up.
Wow. So what I'm hearing is
all
Nathan
free.
Needs to be recording this in OBS and then having that hotkey So when we go to the extra sections, he
go?
can just hit that, and then we can just keep going.
Yeah.
Click. I can see that being very useful because, like, we've done some live streams that are like 4 hours long, and I'd really like to be able to like keep a marker on where things like important happen if I need to break them out for something else. Not that we have a lot of hot takes, but if I did have one, I'd like to put a marker on it so I remember where it is. You have the recording software, you're getting an idea of like Puppy Town or whatever we did the last time, right? The Puppy Town mysteries, I think I'm going to call them now. You have all that. That's about a month ahead of time. So now the process of getting players, because I imagine, similar to me, like anybody's kind of like geared up to go and play a silly one-shot, but do you have ideas about who would work well in certain scenarios that you're putting together?
Also, on that, do you have an idea of like what kinds of players you'd like to have in there? Like not necessarily just who, but like, you know, personality types maybe that you'd like.
I mean, since a lot of what I do is free, or I'm hired by someone else to do it, I sometimes don't even have to worry about the cast. But as for me personally, I've been in this space a while, I've made some friends, I'm like, hey, I think you would be fun. You seem to enjoy my puns in your chat. So
come on over.
That's the big test. Do you find me funny?
Yeah, exactly.
If someone doesn't find you funny, they're not coming on. They're not going to be a good fit.
Sorry, we're not doing this. I can't. I told you a knock-knock joke. You did not laugh. Out. Out.
I hope we're not doing knock-knock jokes, though.
The night is young, Alex. We're going to get to the knock-knock jokes later, and you will laugh. You will.
I'm gonna burn the door down.
Knock,
Please
knock,
laugh.
who's there? The door's on fire. Ah, there.
I'm gonna be Jeb Bush right now. Please laugh.
Great callback to 8 years ago and nobody cares. Okay, so I kind of know this process just because, like, when you've asked me to do these before, but how do you pitch something to a player kind of going, okay, so it's like Iron Chef, right? But there's like a guy that has like a beard that's made of like meat, and it's actually Electrum. And so this is so you're gonna create a character that's gonna be like fantasy chef in this world or whatever. How do you pitch that to them without them thinking that you're insane?
I think that comes with them having to think that he's funny.
Okay, true. That is probably one of the prerequisites, But I'm imagining that, like, you have a lot of surprises that you want to give to them, so you don't want to, like, reveal a lot of what's happening, but you still kind of want to give them a gist of what we're doing here, and so, like, how do you want to present that information?
Yeah, so for the one-shot charity streams that those are what I mainly have cast. Everything else I've done has kind of been either cast for me, or, I'm coming into a cast. No, but the one-shots, I sort of formed a group of, like, 8 people, or, I go, okay, these 5 or 4, whatever, and I email them, and that's always expanding as I get to know more people, and go, oh, yeah, you're fun, you would probably be good on this show, and so they kind of know by now what I'm going for. I'm about, some of them have done all 5 or 6 food-themed charity one-shots that I've done now.
There's a whole genre of food-themed.
It's just food.
There is.
Exactly. You need one more so it can be a 7-course.
Right.
7 course. What about 11sies?
11sies. Second breakfast.
Yes.
Yeah, get on it.
Actually, it's Second Breakfast Club.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
And that is the premise of the next show.
Yeah, the food live
Second
streams.
Breakfast Club.
The food live stream cinematic universe we're building here. This is great. It's perfect. Excellent. Okay.
But I usually have the charity picked out, and so I say, okay, it's for this charity, and like for Electrum Chef, I just explain it's going to be a parody of Iron Chef. There'll be 3 rounds, just like the Iron Chef show. Appetizer, main course, dessert. And
Sure.
I give just a general outline of it, and I save surprises like the meat beard. I didn't tell anyone I was going to do that, and that's at the end of the thing.
You
And no
gotta
one
say
sees it
that.
either because I turn my chair around, and I
Oh.
put on this fake beard that I glued cold cuts to, and then I spin back around.
Did you have to take a shower after that? Like,
No,
no. Oh,
there is this thing you can get called food glue, which I discovered because my Google search was how do I stick meat to my face, right? And
somebody is monitoring your Google searches now.
Oh,
I
no,
got it.
food glue is a thing.
There's somebody at like the FBI kind of going, we got a problem here.
I'm assuming food glue is different than the meat glue that we have, though.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't know. I just found
Okay.
food glue.
Okay. Well, meat glue is a thing to like make meat and stick it together so it is like one coherent meat. But it's not something you want to inhale because your lungs are meat.
Right.
So
Your lungs just get a little sticky. It's fine.
they get a little stuck together muscly, yeah.
Yeah, don't
Yeah,
want that.
I'm one of the rare kids that has never eaten glue, so
Oh,
I didn't have that attraction to it.
it's too
But
bad.
apparently they use food glue for like cakes and stuff and fancy things, and it is edible.
Okay, it's not the same one.
Yeah, no. And so I glued a bunch of cold cuts together, and then I had a fake wizard beard. I bought like a Halloween wizard kit, came with a hat and a little wand that makes sound. Then I glued these cold cuts together, right? And I tried to glue them onto the beard. Well, when I turned around, they didn't stick to the beard material, so I was holding them for a little bit.
Oh.
And then I decided that was gross, and I had to let go of the cold cuts, which stuck together. That part all stuck together, but I just couldn't hold them anymore. And I had to go get up and wash my hands because it was sticky and weird.
Show business, folks.
Most of my streams wind up sticky and weird.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's how you
Well,
have
that's
to promote
clipped
it.
out of
That's-
context.
So yeah.
That's great. Well, we got
That's gonna
the
be a great
short for
clip.
the episode.
How much buy-in would you say not you personally, but do you think someone should have from their players for a live stream, for an actual play? Because a one-shot is one thing, you can kind of
Mhm.
go, we're going to do an Iron Chef parody. That's pretty easy buy-in for a one-shot. But you've run a couple campaigns as well, right?
Yeah.
So how much buy-in do you think the players need to be able to... Because it's different than running a game at home with your friends.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're doing it for a camera, you're doing it for a stream, a production, you're performing
It's a
for an
performance,
audience. So how much buy-in do you think you need from your players on that end to keep things kind of on par? Because I know Nathan, when we talked about doing Rift Hunters, kind of has mentioned that he wanted to go in one direction and his players kind of wanted to go into another direction, and it did not really work well.
I know that they wanted to go around and play, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but I kind of have to keep a story moving forward so that when I record it, it's going to still be, like, structured to some degree. So, like, I had to kind of, like, keep that in mind. I'm kind of curious about this, too, because on a live stream especially, you're in a process of, like, you have to keep things moving, keep things going so that, you know,
Mhm.
people are entertained in real time. How are you able to pace that?
The general process is, okay, here's the game, here's the general premise. Like, when Nathan was on, it was basically detectives looking into weird things, and we have a story, and we all understand we need to move that story forward, so sometimes we don't have time for, you know, this character exploration over here, or this over here. We kind of have to truncate that for the show to get where we're going by the final episode of the season, because I usually have a general idea of, depending how many episodes I have, I'm like, okay, this needs to happen on these episodes, and I do care how they get there, but I wanted to say I don't care how they get there, but that's not exactly
That's
true.
not true.
Yeah. I want them to be at a place, and they can do whatever between here and there, but eventually understand this is a story, and to move the narrative forward with all of us happy, I do need you to be over here
Right.
At this episode. So it's a lot of talk before going on, saying, okay, this is what we're doing. Or sometimes even in an episode, I'm like, okay, this episode, I want to wind up here.
Yeah.
And so everyone has that expectation, and everyone so far that I've dealt with pretty much understands it's a show.
Yeah.
We're not here to have snacks, take breaks, make every joke in the world, and reference all of our material.
I will say that, like, one of the things for me listening to live plays that people do, a lot of what pulls me out of that is that exact thing. When the people at the table will make all the jokes out of turn and just kind of break up the flow, I think. So I definitely appreciate when either it's done in editing and some of that's pulled back to keep the flow, or when just the group understands that we can't take all the time to chatter amongst ourselves just as players and friends. So I definitely understand that. That makes a lot of sense.
So, Alex,
I mean,
I was just going to say, so Alex, what you're saying is that a stream needs a flow. Anyway, DC, you were going to say something before I got my episode title in here. What would you...
We're ebbing and flowing.
Yep.
Oh, I forgot.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. It's okay.
That's okay.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Moving on.
No, it's fine that people make the occasional joke, but I don't want to have a lot of time spent on it. Like, if you want to throw in a line or a reference, that's great, because it does break up some of the tension sometimes, or gives us a moment to laugh, gives us a moment an audience to relate to something. If you can make it relevant to the game, even better. But I don't mind people doing it a couple of times or whatever, as long as it doesn't become a whole skit during the play, unless it's part of your characters interacting, right?
Right. You can take the scenic route, but we still have to get to a destination at some point.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's fun things to look at along the way. When you start to see people kind of like deviating off of that, do you have some tricks on how you kind of like lead back to the story at hand? Like, you gotta kind of like drag them back onto the rails?
You do something the equivalent of the Kool-Aid Man bursting through the wall. And make it plot relevant, like suddenly this hits.
Yeah.
And it's important, and now your focus needs to be here because big thing just happened, and now I'm putting your attention here.
Right.
And hopefully that's the sign for everyone that, okay, big thing has happened. We should be looking at that. We've been off the rails too long. It's a balance, right? You want your players to have fun and go do the things that they want to do. And also for streaming, you also want to tell a story, and figuring that out and what works for you is hard.
This is why I've never run an actual play.
This is true. If it's hard, Alex doesn't want to do it. We've learned that much.
Something like that.
Yeah.
We'll say that's what it is.
Out of curiosity, though, Alex, if you did like run a one shot, do you have an idea of like what you'd want to run it as?
Probably be some kind of time shenanigan paradox.
This does seem to be in your genre.
It'd be something ridiculous, or
Yeah.
a trolley problem where you have to do something morally ambiguous to
Oh.
make people panic.
Oh, yeah. You do Groundhog Day, but it's the trolley problem. You just keep going back in time. Oh, God.
I don't know.
Lever this time.
See, any of the ideas I have for running games are usually longer than one shot, so I'd have to figure out like a one shot that I would want to run in that case.
Yeah.
But usually there's long, drawn out, protracted, oh, I have all these grand ideas.
Actually, DC, that does bring me to a question, because, like, in a live stream, you're gonna have to, keep things moving and keep things fairly, representative for the people that are listening. Alex is looking at, like, getting really complex in some of these, and how do you keep that from getting too large? Like, how are you able to kind of keep it simplistic enough for people while still building a storyline?
Well, we can break some of this down due to previous people doing APs. Like,
Sure.
if I usually have a combat, it's going to be one combat in that episode. And it will probably, if I have 4 people, it'll probably take 45 minutes-ish. If I don't have 45 minutes by the end of that episode, that combat's not happening, or it's split between 2 episodes.
Yeah.
You have only so much time to do things, because you want to give your people intros and introduce the show, any recap. So say that's about your first 10 minutes or so of a 2-hour thing. So now you have, an hour and 50 to tell your story. At certain time markers, I have certain things that happen when we transition from one place to the other. 30-minute increments usually works for me. So at 30 minutes, we need to be here. At an hour, we need to be here. At an hour and a half, we're either in that combat or looking to wrap up in the next 10-15 minutes, because you want to give your players time to outro as well. They deserve the plug, right? And so going around your table and doing all that, and then any announcements you have to make at the end as well. So usually 30-minute increments, starting right at that hour mark of that 2 hours. And if your show's longer, you're looking at different timings. I usually try to keep it to two hours if I can.
Yeah.
The charity streams go longer just because it's for charity, and I want to try to get more people in to give more money to the charity.
Right.
Yeah. We'll be here 24 hours if we have to.
Oh my God. Have you ever tried to do a 24-hour stream?
No, I've been a part of one, but in segments, so I wasn't there the full 24 hours.
Smart.
I was producing part of it, and then I was a player in some of it.
Oh, gotcha.
And so, I had another person, and we would switch off.
Oh, okay.
During that 24 hours. And only the DM was up for 24 hours.
Oh God, I can't imagine trying to run a game for 24 hours though.
I can't either.
No.
Like I don't want to do that. 4 hours is like, all right, I need a break. My brain is fried.
Yeah, 4 hours. I think the longest one that we've done was maybe like 5.5. Probably Super Bendo Quest. Because we finished that one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But trust me, none of that was fun for me, so I guess there's that. Why do you usually look at 2 hours?
Attention spans.
People don't have any.
Yeah. I mean, if I could do shorter shows, that'd be great. I'm looking into ways of doing that. Mm-hmm. But basically, if I'm approaching Marvel movie time, what am I doing? Those are very long, and I'm asking for audience attention, player time, my attention, and so I just sort of got used to making things in 2-hour segments in my head when I approach these, and when I'm looking at an outline for the episode, I'm like, okay, we do this, and we get roughly 2 hours. Sometimes we may go a little less, sometimes we may go a little over, but I aim for about 2 hours, basically, for attention spans. I know players would like to play more, but you're only going to hold that audience for so long. And so, if we can reduce that time, then there'll possibly be more audience buy-in, because they don't have to spend as much of their time with us. And then there's the thing of, we have to be entertaining for 2 hours. Right? That's a lot.
It's a lot of time to be on.
Yeah. I think that's also important for people who just play casually for like D&D or other TTRPGs to understand when you're doing a stream, whether you're like the one running it or you're a player, you are on as a performance for that entire time. You have to think of it like you're doing a theater production. You're in the scene the whole time. Like you're there. So it is a little bit different than being able to just go get your chicken wings and do all.
And I think, as you were saying too, trying to do it shorter, figuring out a way to do like half-hour ways of blocking that out, for instance, that could be individual segments, kind of like the same way we do our show here. We block it out into like give or take a half-hour segments as part of a full podcast because of people's attention spans, which tends to help because not as many people listen to the whole thing as they do the parts, which is just understandable. But doing that for a show that is made up of playing an RPG does seem like a very difficult task, unless you were to have it scripted out. I don't think anyone wants to script out a game and play that. Like, that's what video games are for.
Right, yeah. if you want that, make a radio drama or something.
Yes.
You know.
It's no longer a role playing game. It's
Actually, you could probably do it as if it were a drama, an audio drama of any sort, and then portray it as a role playing game that is an audio drama, and that could work. But it is not an actual play or live stream at that point. It is an audio drama. So
yeah.
And you know, there's shows, of course, that break this, like Critical Role. They're trained people. Critical Role is a special thing. That's lightning in a bottle. That will probably never happen again.
Yeah.
That is you know, there are these special things that can happen, but those are rare.
Yeah.
And you know, how often is lightning going to actually strike your body? Now, you may be successful, but don't look at other things to compare yourselves to, because that's not going to help anyone.
One of the like red flags that I hear when I hear people talk about it is where they're like, we could do a live play, like, and we could be like Critical Role. It's like, oh, you're doomed. You're doomed to failure. It ain't happening. It ain't happening. You're going in with the wrong mindset.
You can aspire to be
aspiration.
As good as Critical Role, but again, they are all trained professionals.
Not the same.
They have a studio. They have a studio. They get paid a good wage for what they do.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very high budget production too.
Yeah, very high budget production. That a lot of us just don't have that kind of funding, and that's okay.
Right.
But realize, you know, where that puts you. It's not going to be CR land, and don't try to be Critical Role land.
No.
Be yourselves. It'll be a lot better product.
They were talking to members of the Beatles. I think they were talking to Paul, like, more recently.
What, on a podcast?
No, he was on not on a podcast. But
I don't know. You said half of the Beatles are dead.
Yes, exactly, and the rest are holograms. But the point is. But anyway,
they're using the Ouija board to talk to John. It's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. But one thing that they were talking about was like the phenomenon of the Beatles, and something that Paul was actually mentioning is that, like, well, the Beatles couldn't even be the Beatles today, because it was like a point in time and it was a specific thing, and if you tried to do it today as the Beatles, it would not work. Like, it's not the same thing.
No, you'd have to be K-pop today.
Yeah, but the point he was trying to make was that it's really place and time, and you have certain conditions that get met, and it just happens to hit, but you can't recreate it. Like, it's just, even they couldn't recreate it if they were around today doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It would not
I
be
mean,
the same.
My favorite Beatles quote is actually when someone asked John Lennon if they thought Ringo was the best drummer in the world.
He's not even the best drummer in the Beatles.
And he replied that Ringo isn't even the best drummer in the Beatles, yes. Because that British humor,
Poor Ringo.
they were snarky.
Poor Ringo. There needs to be a live play that's just where everybody plays the Beatles.
Oh,
and
God.
Just on a musical tour.
That's your four bards.
Yeah, it's exactly.
And then you introduce a fifth character, and it's Yoko Ono. And
Bardic Invasion. The Bardish Invasion. That's what we call it. But if you're looking to do like a half-hour like live play, there's also the possibility you could do it like a sitcom. You run it like a sitcom, and then you can have your breaks be the laugh tracks that come in. How many laugh tracks do you get? That's your inspiration.
I would think, as far as timing, 45 minutes to an hour is probably going to be a good spot to be in.
Sure.
Otherwise, 2 hours is good. But if you want more people to kind of binge your stuff, I mean, they could binge it for longer than your episode is. So, I mean, I do this. I watch a show that's an hour long, but there's more of it, so I wind up 3 hours in watching that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're in
I
it.
do this at work.
You're right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird how that works, but that's what we find ourselves in. And so if you're binging something, think about the time you're doing that, and are your friends doing an actual play? Could you support them in that way, watching that too?
Yeah.
And I wanted to go back to scripting real quick. Is that there is, and mentioned this previous, there is tiny bit of it, but not like lines for actors. You can talk about where you want where the players want their characters to go and where you want the story to go, but you're not giving them lines, right? You're just
Right.
playing it out, essentially,
Yeah.
and getting to certain points, and those are sort of the only scripted bits, if you will. It's not a whole actual script, if you will.
Yeah.
Right.
You're
It's
not
more
reading
of an
lines of
outline.
dialogue as actors.
Yeah. It's an outline that you're working with, basically. Almost like if I were to equate it to like, movie making or something, it's storyboarding. You have like your panels of like we have here. We don't quite know how we're getting there, but like we got it all kind of laid out.
It's a very loose outline that will change rapidly and a lot based on players.
Yes.
And so, you have to be able to roll with the punches, as it were.
Yeah.
Almost like recording a podcast.
Yeah. Do you have occasion? I don't know if I've seen a lot of people try this, but do you have like if-then statements, like when you're doing a live play? Like, if the players decide that they want to jump off the cliff, then I know I have to do this thing. Like, just in case they think that that's a portal to another dimension, and it's not. What are we doing?
So I usually work out 2, maybe 3 general paths.
Okay.
And I present them all to the players. They can take one. This is just for me. It's rare that players can really surprise me with something. That's only happened once in a home game, where I was just totally unexpected and didn't see that coming at all.
Yeah.
But in general, 2 to 3 options. They generally go towards one or the other, and so I can kind of shape around that, and then I go, okay, they went this way, and now, but these bits they didn't cover are still happening, but without their interference.
Got it.
And so those are happening in the background now while they're resolving this thing. This is how I move my outline around constantly, just based on player whatever they want to do.
Now I just want to try and surprise DC somehow. This is my goal.
This is your goal?
I enjoy making people go, I didn't expect that at all.
Yeah.
But no, I like that. Giving them a couple options that are viable and then having the other parts of it resolve or potentially complicate things is always fun.
Like I ran a werewolf game on stream, and I had 4 episodes, and they had different paths they could take. And by the end of the 4th episode, the path they didn't take came up and kind of wrapped up the whole segment. It came back in a big terrifying way, but because they had a couple things they could solve, right? And there was only so much time for them to solve something, but these other things were happening as well. And so, as horrifying as these other things were, they at least did some good somewhere, but because they didn't hit this other thing, it came out big and terrifying.
I love it when it's big and terrifying. That's my favorite thing.
Who doesn't?
We talked a lot about the one-shots and like limited runs, but you were saying that you also have done like longer campaigns online as well.
Yeah.
How do you have to figure that out? It's basically, you were saying, if there's a combat, there's one combat for a stream. Are there certain elements that you want to try and get into every, essentially, episode of the campaign? This is going?
Not necessarily. If I need certain thematic notes to hit, if you're trying to build tension, there's things you do to build tension. If you want to make something dark, there's things you do to make things dark or light or more comedic, right? So you just put those in that make sense to the narrative you're trying to tell. And if you've watched movies, you've seen these effects before. Creeping sound along the walls before you see the thing. You can introduce that before you show the thing, and then that's in the back of people's minds that there's this creepy skittering sound coming around.
Yeah, it's the bomb under the table thing. Like Hitchcock talked about. Yeah,
and like I said, just having an outline, knowing how many episodes you have to do a thing is incredibly useful, because or at least you should have some idea of what the end looks like, and be prepared to change that end based on what the players do throughout.
Sure.
Like, all this is changeable, right? You kind of have an idea of where you want to go. if you actually get there, it's another idea entirely, but you can come close. And you can get there, and you can still have that thing happen in the background and come back around eventually and surprise the players with it.
It's kind of like putty. You know, you get like this ball of putty, and you know that the elements are there, but you're shaping it into something over the course of time, and you don't know exactly what it's going to be at the end. Yeah. Like in Power Rangers.
Right. Putties are in Power Rangers.
Putties are in Power Rangers.
Oh, Lord. I was going to say it's like the opposite of a TV series that goes, we don't really know how many seasons we're going to be running for, so we're just going to keep rolling with it. As opposed to like going to a show like Gravity Falls, where Alex Hirsch went, I have this one set story I want to tell that takes place over a single summer and 2 seasons of show. And when it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
And many TV shows are like, well, we potentially have a season if we don't get canceled before that. So that's what I'm going to write to. And that's why that first season is so
great.
Sometimes dramatically ended, is because they have no idea if there's going to be more.
Yeah,
so sometimes they want to tell a story, and that has a lot to do with, you know, financing and viewership and a bunch of other things. So
there have been so many shows that'll end on cliffhangers at the ends of seasons because of that reason.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we have a jumping off point for the next season if we get another season, and if you don't, well, the audience is screwed.
I think Stranger Things, I was watching a thing recently where they were like, yeah, the Duffer Brothers pretty much like were like, this is a season, and it was meant to be like the one season, but then it's like, oh, everybody wanted more. Okay, we can figure that out, like, afterward. We'll make it work somehow.
I think it's definitely, I think, easier, as you said, if you know, like, how long you want it to run, how many episodes, and the plot and where you want the ending to be, definitely feels like a lot easier to go, okay, I have a beginning, I have what I want in the middle, the different points I want to hit in the end, so that definitely feels like it's helpful.
Yeah.
And going back to the putty thing, you mentioned you're playing with putty. Everyone at your table is at your table, because we're talking virtual usually, is playing with that putty too, and informing what that end looks like as well. So, you know, you want some structure just because it's a show, but you also need people to contribute to whatever that final form is, and have room for that as well.
It's like reverse Jenga. You're not taking blocks away, you're adding more stuff to it.
That's still Jenga. You still add the blocks back to the tower in Jenga, Nathan.
No elements are taken or are brought back. Or moved or lost. It's Jenga conservation theory. It's
conservation of Jenga energy, yeah. It's a theory in quantum physics now.
Do you have just any general advice about, like, if people were looking to dig into doing one of these live plays themselves, would the advice be run? Basically,
it would be grab a shovel, because it helps you dig, Nathan.
It digs your own grave.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about pre-planning, and my biggest piece of advice is timing is important.
Yes.
You had generally, for whatever reason, in this streaming space we usually have about 30 minutes before the show starts to get everything organized on the producer end, to get all of the people in the place on their overlay, to make sure they sound good.
Sure.
You have 30 minutes. And use that time wisely. If someone's late and they don't give a reason why, you know, I'm like, why were you late? Life happens, right? You're probably going to be late occasionally. That's fine. But if you're consistently late, that puts everything off, because a lot of times, depending on how you're putting your show together, you have to wait for everyone to get into the call before you can place them. And then everything you have to do after that is now delayed by however long that person was late. Yeah. And then you want to hit that 2-hour mark, you know, keep a timer, keep looking at the clock. So when I'm producing someone, I put in the back chat, hey, we're at 30 minutes. Hey, we're at an hour. Hey, we're at an hour and a half. Hey, you got 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
You know, just to get them to their points they need to be, and we can wrap up.
Sure.
Do all the things we need to do after that. So timing, look at timing, think about timing, and how important that is to your story.
Yeah. Timing is everything, which is why I'm going to now do a 3-minute pause that just makes no sense whatsoever right here at the end. button.
Yeah. Dead air for 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's the content you all come here for. My question for the end of the segment is actually just to ask anyone if you do have any other questions about doing an actual play or a live stream, to let us know in the comments down below, because if we have DC back on sometime, I can use that as questions so I don't have to think of them. You're really going to be saving my brain power more than anything else.
His attention span, too.
Squirrel!
No.
Yeah, anyway,
No.
let us know in the comments down below.